It is hot just about everywhere in the country right now, the whole world, really. According to NOAA, ever since June of 2023, we've seen record breaking global temperatures every single month. And if you think this summer is unbearably hot, just wait for hurricane season. Forecasters are saying that this year's storms are going to be bigger, stronger, and more frequent than usual, harder, bigger, faster, stronger, because the water in the Atlantic Ocean right now is hotter than we've ever seen in modern times. They're expecting 17 to 25 named storms, possibly 7 major hurricanes. The worst month, usually August, September, and October. It's only July 2nd. There's already a Category 5 hurricane out there. It's heading for Jamaica right now. That never happens. As investors, we know that weather moves stocks. The question, which ones are going to be the biggest winners and losers this year? Today on Dumb Money, our trades on record-breaking heat and storms.
This is Dumb Money Live.
Hey there, Dave here, along with Chris and Jordan. We are Dumb Money. Welcome to Dumb Money Live. It is, I've been basically doing my part to stay out of the Dallas heat since May. I'm in Monterey, California right now, where the high today should be right around 68 degrees. I know you've both been traveling as well, which is why we haven't been on for a while. So, by the way, really need you guys to smash the like button, wake up the YouTube algorithm. We need your help now more than ever. But Chris, Jordan, you're both in Dallas. It's expected to be over 100 today, and for the next few days. I think I've been thinking about these summer heat wave trades, the hurricane trades. Now that hurricane season is clearly here. I haven't made any trades yet, but I want to get to that in a bit. I want to hear your ideas though. What is going on, and how can we make money from it?
Well, do we start with storms or do we start with heat? I guess they're kind of related, right?
I mean, the heat is bringing the storms, and we're just in our first hurricane, so maybe let's start with heat and then move to storms.
Okay. Well, the world's getting hotter. And anytime there's change, that means there's opportunity to make money. No, I can't only do so much to make the world cooler, right? But I can make money with the world heating up. So why not make the best of it, right? Like you can make money, and you could, I don't know, put that money towards climate change if you want, right? Like, but the
Earth is going to do what the Earth does. We've had extreme heat. You can't do anything about it. It's not going to change in your lifetime.
Listen, I don't want to get into a climate change debate, but I will say this. Whatever the reason
we know that we've seen 12 months of record high temperatures. The average temperatures, I mean, if you look at your weather app, you can't even look at the average anymore to see what it might be like that time of year, wherever you're going in the country. Always going to be hotter now, because for the last 2 years we've had at least is it 1 or 2 degrees above that average as the new average.
It's undebatable that right now, at least, the world is getting warmer. What happens in 5 years, I don't know, but right now it's getting warmer, and it's getting like a lot warmer. We're here in Texas, and I had a conversation with Jordan a couple of weeks ago about, I think he's trying to figure out how much longer he can even live here if this continues, right, Jordan? Like, it's insane.
Yeah, I think look, if you just anywhere, I think you've got to constantly decide, is this where I want to continue to live? Just kind of like every single stock in your portfolio, you should constantly be thinking, is this stock something that I want to keep investing in, right? Maybe not every day, but it's something that you should review constantly. And if it's just going to be 110 degrees every day in the summer, I didn't sign up to live in Arizona. It's not, my preference. I like to be outside, and it's just nearly impossible to be outside right now.
Well,
that's why I'm not in Texas right now. I'm traveling anywhere I can that has cool weather, and that's why I bought the Mexico house, because it has basically San Diego weather, which as the heat continues to go, it's still pleasant there.
That Baja, Southern California area is just ideal for weather year-round.
Well, Dave, you have 2 house money, and not everybody does. I live in Texas. I'm not going anywhere anytime soon, so I might as well make money off this ridiculous heat wave that continues to get bigger every single summer. Listen, I think it's undebatable that we're getting hotter and it's going to get hotter, at least for the next few years, it seems like. And there are some obvious winners here. We've been talking about this just about every summer that we've done dumb money. And every summer we talk about these HVAC companies. And I usually trade around them, and I wish I would just stick with them because HVAC has been on fire
Yeah, well,
the
if you
last.
look at if you look at the stock charts for Train and Lennox, those two things have just been on a tear for the past. It seems like what 7 or 8 months.
Yeah, I do have a heat wave tray I want to talk about that is not Train and not Lennox.
Yeah,
It's a really interesting company that I'm sure you're aware of, guys, called Carrier. And what's so
yeah,
interesting about Carrier is that they have not experienced the type of rapid uh, price expansion multiple that Train and Lennox have experienced because Carrier has been kind of all over the place the last 5 to 10 years. They made a decision recently, I say recently, in the last few years, to go all in on cooling and heating. So Carrier has decided to sell off every single one of their businesses that is not related to cooling or heating. They've sold off they have like a fire suppression business. They have a commercial refrigeration business. They had a couple other big businesses.
mhm,
I want to
yeah,
say that they've generated about $5 billion of asset sales over the last few years. In fact, they just recently sold the last of their four big divisions that were unrelated to heating and cooling. And they spent a ton of money to buy a heat pump company in Europe. It's one of the largest heat pump companies in Europe. So Carrier is basically saying, hey, we are going all in on heating and cooling. That's what I want to hear because now they're a pure play, right? Now they're going all in on this space. They are really big domestically here in the US when it comes to residential. They lean more residential than commercial, which I kind of like because if you were to pick one weak point, commercial has a lot of elements right now, as we all know, right, in the commercial real estate space that are not doing so great and that there's a lot of uncertainty around. But residential, when it comes to residential cooling around the world, like I just cannot think of a scenario that is not going to benefit that space the next few years. So Carrier is a name that I'm starting to get really excited about.
yeah.
And what makes it even more exciting, and this we didn't talk much about this when we did our AI episodes, but there's actually a big AI play here because from 2023 to 2027, the HVAC demand is projected to go from 7 billion to 20 billion in 4 years just for HVAC for artificial intelligence. All right,
Yeah.
for cooling down all of these server sites, right, for AI. In fact, Carrier, although they do lean a bit more residential than commercial, Carrier said that they expect 20% of their commercial sector of their commercial business to be AI here, AI driven in the next few years. And they've already doubled their backlog of HVAC systems for these server sites that are AI centric. So there is an interesting AI play
Yeah.
here on top of the global warming play for residential and commercial HVAC. I think it's a super exciting. By the way, on the heat
Yeah.
pump side and on the heating side, it's more interesting than you think because it's mostly a European play. And Europe, as we all know, is just so slow to catch up to the rest of the world when it comes to electrifying their houses and like waking up and getting like central systems. And there's all types of government subsidies and programs to support heat pump technology throughout all of Europe. And now Carrier did spend a lot of money on this company they acquired, but they kind of are in the perfect space now to take advantage of all of these tailwinds. So again, Carrier's a company that's been lagging, But I like that because it took them a while to get to this point, and now they're finally here to go head to head with some of these kind of larger players in the space. And I like them. I haven't bought them yet, by the way, but I'm still researching, but I'm likely to take a position in Carrier here in the very near term future. That's kind of like my number one global warming play, this heat
Yeah,
wave.
Chris. So that's my number one. Also, I do have a number two that's pretty close to it, but they don't sit in the residential side as much, and that's Johnson Controls. But Johnson Controls has had a little bit more success in data center, not specifically AI. So they're not actually cooling any of these AI units, but just general data center cooling. They're more of they're more of a commercial cooling company, but they're also trying to streamline their operations. So they're selling off things that are what they call air handling. So, louvers and, things like that, and just concentrating on their core of HVAC, which I also like. So Johnson Controls is one that I'm looking at. But that could be, part of like I think so I think Johnson Controls like 60% United States, 40% international. And so if you have some sort of reacceleration in Asia or in Europe, I think you could see some upside in Johnson Controls.
Yeah, I think we talked about Johnson Controls a little bit maybe this last year is on one of our AI episodes. We at least touched on it. It's not a bad idea at all. Dave just made me think of something though. With Dave buying his Mexico house, I know people that maybe aren't as fancy as Dave and don't have a second house still like to escape the heat, right? And I think a lot of us are trying to escape it as much as humanly possible now in the summer, especially in these big southern markets like Texas. It could be another tailwind for the travel industry, yet another tailwind for the
And
travel
we've
industry.
seen this. This has been one of the busiest travel seasons on record. We're back to before pre-2019 levels, and it's kind of crazy. If you're, the airports are packed. That you were seeing record numbers of TSA. I think travel is a good sector. When it heats up where you are, you want to get to somewhere cooler.
Yeah,
but it just creates kind of a it creates.
Yeah, I was wondering if there was. I was looking, and I haven't found anything yet. But can you capitalize on regional travel, because travel in general is going to do what travel in general is going to do. It's a monster business. But can you find a focus trade like in, let's say, Colorado? So Texans just exodusing to Colorado for the summer. Is there anything, that?
But that's where I think
the answer to
that. Air conditioning is what air conditioning is. I mean, it's kind of like all of these things are, heat is going to happen. The algos already know it's going to get hot. I'm sure you're not the first person to think that Carrier is going to, sell more air conditioning because it's hot out. I like that as an AI play. I hadn't really done much research on how the refrigeration side of the server farm business really is going to accelerate, but that seems like something to look into.
But Dave, as European cities heat up in the near term, right? That there are a lot of buildings still without HVAC. There is still opportunity for growth outside of certain areas that planned for some of this heat.
It's not, guys, it's not just growth, though. The replacement cycle on HVAC is absolutely insane. Dave, you know this. They don't make these machines like they used to, right? Like these HVAC units, if you go on any HVAC forum, and I've spent probably an unusual amount of time on HVAC forums the last few years because I'm a nerd like that. All the conversation around these HVAC professionals is how these units just do not last. They are.
Well, Chris, some of this isn't anything to do with the actual units themselves. Sure, I mean, you can get a lower cost unit, and maybe it doesn't last as long. But some of this is planned obsolescence and the change in refrigerants that's being pushed, right? And so you see that these certain refrigerants that come out, and then they'll come out and say like, okay, well, this one, you're not allowed to sell this one past X year, and then it's going to be replaced by this refrigerant, and that's a big, and there are environmental reasons, sure, but Part of it, I think, is baked in by the industry to sell more HVACs.
Well, yeah. So, Jordan, I think part of the problem here is that HVACs generally, due to cost inflation, have gotten a lot more expensive over the years.
Yeah,
Obviously, customers are super price sensitive. So, there's been a bit of a race to the bottom in terms of component quality,
yeah,
build quality, because at some point, for the most part, people do not look at their HVAC system like, I'm going to stay in this house for 30 years and I want it to maximize. They want the cheapest system they can get as to last. They know when they buy a new system, it's going to last them 5, 6, 7 years, right? 8 years.
well, I think a
That's
lot of
all.
people have been burned by some of the, refrigerant, some of the refrigerant cycles to where, they buy a unit and then they have somebody come out to service it in 7 years. And all of a sudden the service technician says, look, the, the refrigerant for this is now insanely expensive. This unit is now obsolete because there's a new refrigerant style and this doesn't support it. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think people are like, you know what, if it's only going to last me so many years anyways, then I'll buy the cheapest one I can.
And
That,
by
and
the way,
you
the
don't
cheapest
get,
one is
you
still
don't
really
get bang for
expensive,
the
Jordan.
buck out of different, if you get a higher end unit, let's say that costs twice as much, it's not going to save you 50% on your electricity bills. It might save you 10, 15% at best.
Correct. But again, the component quality,
Right.
no one is incentivized between Train and Carrier and Lennox. None of them are incentivized to spend extra money on a unit to make it last 3 or 4 or 5 years longer, because at the end of the day, they're not going to sell any because they'll be significantly more expensive.
Yeah.
And customers are just not willing to pay the premium. We know builders aren't willing to pay the premium, and it just
Right.
doesn't make sense. And they will tell you that there's no such thing as a better HVAC unit anymore. It doesn't matter what brand you get, they are all made with the same junky components now, and none of them are built to last as long as they used to. So that's a reality of the sector that I think is ultimately benefiting all of the HVAC companies, because the replacement cycle is a gift that keeps on giving over and over and over again. And HVAC is so incredibly important. Once you adapt to living in a space with HVAC, like Europeans are finally just starting to scratch the surface of now, right? There's no going back. Right, Dave? There's no going back. Once you know what
Chris,
it's
it's
like to
different
live.
here. I mean, we literally couldn't live in our houses if they didn't have HVAC.
It
Dude,
gets
Jordan,
just as hot in parts of Europe now.
we were
Yeah,
talking.
Let me bring this back to a stock that I always come back to, my favorite stock, because I think they are also potentially going to be on the HVAC business with their heat pumps. And when it's hot and sunny, you can collect a lot of solar and store it in your battery in your garage. Tesla. Tesla is my stock for everything. It's the answer for every question.
Yeah, we'll
None
see
of
when
that
any of
matters
that,
for
we'll,
Tesla.
we'll see when any of that affects the EPS, Dave, because it doesn't
All
yet.
that matters for Tesla is Optimus. That's all that matters. Nothing else matters. All the batteries, all the cars, none of that matters. It's all Optimus. That's all that matters.
All
But
right,
no,
let's switch gears and talk a little about the storm and the hurricane and all of those stocks, because we have a list of those that are on repeat too. Home Depot, Lowe's, Generac, the battery companies, the clean water companies, the remediation companies.
okay. Can I just say here's the way to think about storm trades. And as we've said a million times, we're not financial advisors. This is the way that we think about them. It's not that you should necessarily employ this strategy, but here's how I've been thinking about storm trades forever. It's the same exact way that I'm now thinking about the election trade, by the way, which people had put in the comments, that the Trump versus Biden. Like, we will do an election episode. I promise, guys, we are going to do an election episode.
How we didn't do an episode after the debate, that's just purely based on travel schedules. We definitely need to talk about this.
Yes. But the similarity between the two worlds, I was just in Vegas talking at Meet Kevin's wealth building conference in Vegas,
Mhm.
and people ask me about the Trump trade or the Biden trade. I'm like, listen, stop spending so much time analyzing who the big winners are actually going to be if Trump wins, or who the winners are going to be if Biden wins, which is looking less and less likely based on this trajectory. But what actually matters are the big obvious things of what who people perceive will be the winners and losers, even if it doesn't make any sense. Okay, that's all that actually matters. In no place is this more relevant than with storm trades, because I've always tried to get really creative and think like one level deeper than everyone else when it comes to storm trades. And over the past few years, I realized, you know what, that doesn't actually make as much sense as simply dumbing down the methodology and saying, you know what will everyone else think? And let's just, I don't like using this word, but let's try to front run everyone else's trade when a storm hits, right? So let's try to get a little bit ahead of them. So what does everybody trade every time there's a hurricane? There's three
Generac.
things.
Generac
Well, okay.
and roofing.
Okay. Well, hold on. I'll take it back. There's okay.
There's five things.
Okay,
There's seven things.
Five things.
Just
Five
eight things. There's only 8 things.
Okay, five things. Okay, so let's start with the most obvious thing, and the most obvious trade to me, and I think it's about 5 to 6 days before a theoretically major hurricane hits land. Home Depot and Lowe's. Home Depot and Lowe's every single time. But you have to time it perfectly, right? If you don't time it right, you are done.
See, I don't even know if you can compete in this game anymore now that BlackRock is front running everyone with their AI algorithm. The day that NOAA released their press release saying that they're predicting above normal Atlantic hurricane season, that was May 23rd. The next day, Generac was up 5%, Home Depot was up 3%, Lowe's was up 3%. They've come back down, but that little spike happens, and they're going to trade that faster than you.
Okay. They won't. They will. Yes, when they get to make their own report, they won't. But monitor the news cycle right before these things start to hit the news cycle. Like, and we know how the news cycle works with these storms, right? As they're forming in the Antilles or whatever, right? If you get a sense for the fact that this is likely to become a big one, I think I'm going to take a shot every time. I'm going to buy some weekly options every time on Home Depot, maybe Lowe's, and I'm going to be a couple days early. And if it doesn't work out, I will take on the market risk of, if it happens to move down over that 48-hour period for some other reason, I'll take the hit, okay? Because it's kind of like gambling on.
It's totally gambling. You're a degen gambler, and here's the problem.
No, it's gambling.
You're trying to get one step ahead of these storms. The algorithms are already ahead of you getting one step ahead of the storms. You could probably front run the algorithms if you just wanted to place a bet on red and let the roulette wheel spin. You might win.
No, here's why. It's like betting on the roulette wheel, but the roulette wheel has like 5 extra spaces on it that are red because of that storm. So, okay, it's not like you have a 90% chance.
You're just gambling on what you think the other algos are going to do.
No, you have an edge over. They're not that smart. The algos are not that smart. I'm telling you this. They're not that smart.
Roaring Kitty posted a picture of a dog, a cartoon of a dog, and Chewy stock went up 25%. I don't know if you saw, but yesterday he was required to disclose that he now owns 9 million shares. He is the 5th or 6th largest shareholder of Chewy.
Fine. I get it. But I'm telling you, I've done this.
He posted a dog, and the stock goes up. Not because everybody jumped on and bought it, but because the institutions did. Because BlackRock's money. Because the algos said, oh, dog, the background color of this dog is the exact brand color for Chewy. Guess what? Okay. All the other pet stocks went up too.
You just made my point.
I think the weather is one of the most predictable things because everybody's watching it and everybody knows the stocks are going to move. So,
Dave, you
at this
just
point,
made
you're
my
kind of just
point.
gambling.
If everyone is going to start trading, including institutions, the second the word hurricane starts getting mentioned more than a certain amount, before it starts getting mentioned, before you have that good of probability, just get that additional edge of knowing that there's a semi-likely chance of that happening and take a chance at it. That's what I'm doing.
So
I'm going
you're
to buy my
basically saying
options
any
40 hours.
May in the May you should always just
No,
buy
no.
some 2-month calls on
No,
every
you can't make
Home
money on
Depot.
2-month options. No, it has to be within a few days. There's a
Zero
there's an
DTE
art to
options.
this. There's an art to this, and I'm telling you, I've done it now a handful of times, and it works more than it doesn't work. I'm going to get into those
I just
names.
got a text from my dog that says that she's been saying to buy Chewy for 3 years now, and I never listened to her.
Oh man! All
That's
right.
because my dogs and my Megan and Chimmy are both here saying that I should have bought Chewy.
Here's the deal: we're all going to get, the whole community is going to get in the dumbmoney.tv/Discord channel, which is the trade research channel, and we'll debate when the perfect time is before each of these storms to get in. But I'm telling you, there is a window. There still is a window to get in. There's 5 different trades. One is the Home Depot Lowe's. Another is obviously Generac. Okay. Again, these are percent. Everybody knows Generac now. Generac's another one. The other one, it's a bit tougher of a play. Beacon Roofing is a play, Dave. I don't really recommend doing it that early. Beacon Roofing is one that I only get in later. In fact, I would get into Home Depot Lowe's first, even before the news cycle really starts, just as these storms are forming. Then I would get into Generac, okay? There are a couple others. One is oil, and we just saw this with this hurricane that is potentially going to enter the Gulf in the next few days. Anytime you have a storm that has a track that could put itself in the Gulf of Mexico, that is a really strong storm, like the one we're seeing right now. What's this storm called?
Yeah.
The hurricane called?
Beryl.
Beryl, right?
So
So
it starts with a
Beryl
B, so it's only the second named storm, and it's already a Cat 5 hurricane.
Look at what Beryl did to the oil market the last few days, because Beryl is clearly going to enter the Gulf. So look at where Beryl was when it started to move the oil market. And in fact, there's been articles about this. So if you look at an ETF like USL, okay, which is United States 12-month oil, that's one of a handful of ways to play this when you have a massive storm that's going to potentially be a Cat 4, maybe even a Cat 5, that could impact the Gulf. You can't wait till it's in the Gulf. It's happening already, okay? So that market has already started to move. That's an interesting trade to me as well. But there's one that's also super interesting, but it's very niche, and it only makes sense when you have a potentially Cat 5 storm that has potential to hit the bullseye of Miami. All right. So we talked about this every year. If we have a Cat 4, Cat 5 storm that is maybe possibly going to be a direct hit on Miami. By the way, do either of you know what the probability of a Cat 5 storm hitting the Miami area is? Just take a guess. Don't look it up.
Well, just like in general,
every year, every hurricane year.
I don't know.
One in 7.
No, it's got to be way lower than that.
I don't know.
Not even close.
Miami?
What do you think, Jordan? What do you think?
If I were to guess, like 1 in 75 or something.
It's 0.2, so it's 1 in 500. 1 in 500 is the statistical probability of a Cat 5 storm hitting the Miami area. Okay,
I'm saying anything that's aimed in the direction. If I'm not saying of all hurricanes ever, I'm saying things that look like they're going to go there. Miami is a small target in the funnel.
It has to hit. It has to actually kind of like Cat 5 level winds hitting Miami. So if that happens, but you don't have to wait for it to happen. If it even looks like there is a 10 or 20% probability of a storm getting their cycle in that window that's like a Cat 5, my trade is to short Universal Insurance Holdings.
The insurance.
Universal
Yeah.
Insurance Holdings. They are the largest private insurer in Florida. They've done really, really well over the past few decades because we haven't had a Cat 5 storm hit Miami. I think
Chris,
I
I
want
want to
to.
ask about that because and I love it, but I think it's a great play. But has the insurance situation changed in Florida? I mean, we've heard all sorts of news about how it's impossible to get your home insured in Florida, and so people are either leaving or leaving their homes
It,
uninsured, or premiums are going up, or or certain aspects of coverage are changing. And so, do we know if there's been a change over the last couple of years to either their policies or their rates that would make it less attractive for this short position?
so I'll tell you, bottom line, Jordan, is for property type insurance for these hurricanes for wind damage, the rates have gone way up, which has made
Yeah,
it more profitable for companies like Universal Insurance Holdings. Now, what they've had to do is spend a lot more money on reinsurance. So they are reinsured
right.
for $3 billion. So their first, what they call tower of cover of reinsurance, is $3 billion. Now, to give you an idea, the storm that hit in 2022 that entered the west side of Florida and kind of went through it and out the upper right side of Florida. I mean, it was a destructive storm. I forget the name of that one. It was called like someone in the comments can put it in there. But that storm caused, I think, just over $1 billion of losses for this insurance company. Now, they had reinsurance, but what happens is the reinsurance rates then go way up. It makes them, they have to like rebuild their entire, they have to then charge their customers more.
Yeah.
It's a big negative, right?
Yep.
The bottom line is if we get anything close to a Cat 5 hitting anywhere close to Miami, Fort Lauderdale area, Miami-Dade County, will they survive? Maybe. You could even say that probably they would survive.
Yeah,
Would
but
the
they're not going to thrive,
economics
and
of their
it'll definitely impact their bottom line. Yeah.
well, it not only will impact their bottom line, but the economics of their entire business model will get
Yeah.
completely rocked. But that doesn't even really matter because the perception, most people haven't spent hours researching this insurance company like I have. Most people are just going to make an assumption that this is the company to short. Okay. So I don't even care about, I'm not going to be in this trade long enough to
For it
even
to actually
know.
play
Yeah.
out.
Yeah,
And
but
that's
it's
the same is true for earthquakes, because if you can find the insurance company for an area that is hit by an earthquake fast enough, that one is going to drop, even if they're not actually financially impacted by the earthquake.
yeah. If there was one takeaway from this show on this trade, it's not to overly obsess about the actual losers or winners. It's just to focus on the timing of trading the perceived winners and losers. That matters way, way more than being right, okay, about a winner or loser in this. And it took me so many years to learn this, and that's what I want to share with the community today. So just think about this. Hurricane season, Home Depot, Lowe's, Generac, the oil ETFs, Universal Insurance Holdings, only when we have a Cat 5 that's going to hit the Miami area. And the last one, Dave, yes, is Beacon Roofing. And this is where it gets a little interesting because Beacon Roofing kind of, people don't trade that as quickly, right? So sometimes I think you have a little bit more time there because Beacon Roofing only gets impacted if it really is a big Cat 4, Cat 5 in a heavily populated area that's going to blow off a lot of roofs and siding. By the way, Beacon Roofing is not just roofing, it's roofing and siding now too,
Yeah.
because they diversified that company over the past 6 years. So the water damage doesn't impact Beacon Roofing as much, so it has to be a big wind storm, and the
Yeah.
only way that wind does a lot of damage is in high population areas. But
Right.
Cat 4, Cat 5, high population, I'm going ultra long Beacon Roofing
Yeah,
every
Chris. But if you get on that tailside edge and you get storm surge on, in a major metro area, You could be looking at Lumber Liquidators. You could be looking at Floor and Decor.
Okay, Floor and Decor. Remember that one? Yeah.
Another
So
one. That's another one. That's a brand name that people go to. I think we should do an episode called "The Best Stock is the Obvious Stock," where we basically say, okay, in what scenario do we go with these random stocks? If this happens, this is the stock, and then you're building your own little mental algorithm.
the problem with Floor and Decor is like when we did that big Floor and Decor trade. I think it was the hurricane that hit Houston.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
I was like, guys, why is no one buying Floor and Decor? They're a huge winner here. And like you had to like no one cared about Floor and Decor. And I didn't want to stay in the trade for like 2 months for them to come out with earnings because I just wanted a quick options trade that I was able to like flip premiums on. And I was like, guys, wake up. Floor and Decor is a winner. And people are trading Home Depot and Lowe's. I'm like, how about Floor and Decor? But that's the only problem there is that it's you're almost better off just trading the obvious ones, Jordan, if you want.
Right. It's so next level. It's like third level down of things that people would think of to buy.
Because where the real money is made in these trades are the quick option flips. Getting in those options, the weeklies, right? Getting in the weeklies, trying to get a 2x or 3x out of them, and then right when the rest of the world is pumping media about the storm, that's when you're exiting these trades, right? Every single time. What's this comment?
Okay, Florida residents, talking about how the insurance companies went bankrupt based on the properties they insured in Florida.
So changes have been made to the insurance industry. So I want to say there were 16 insurance companies that went bankrupt in one of these big storms. Changes were made. They are doing a way better job now of reinsuring themselves. In fact, I read a story where one of those storms, I don't know, 10 years ago, the insurance companies didn't even know how many houses they had in the storm area, and they were going street by street counting houses. I mean, that's how antiquated they were, but not anymore. Like these companies are more sophisticated. They know their risk. They are reinsured for a lot of their risk, but none of that really helps them because the truth is, if they get hit and that reinsurance gets hit, boy, good luck getting reinsurance at anything close to what they're paying. And at a certain point, Jordan, you're right, it almost does become prohibitively expensive, and it starts to impact these insurance companies. Like I know in Texas, there are like a lot of the insurance to have a bar has gotten so high that I think a lot of these bars are just self-insurance now. And they're just like, screw it. Like we'll just go out of business if we get sued beyond a certain level, because we just can't you can't spend $100,000 a year on insurance when you only make $100,000 a year, right? Like it doesn't make sense at a certain point. But part of the reason why the insurance has gotten so expensive, and this is why I think the next time we see a big storm, we are going to see astronomical damage numbers that we've never seen before, because it's not just about the damage anymore. The replacement cost has skyrocketed.
That's the
labor, roofing materials. That's why insurance is so high right now. It's not even because of the risk factors. It's primarily because the labor and the materials cost is so much higher than it was 7, 8, 9 years ago. When we see the next big storm, guys, we could be seeing. I have a stat here that says that Cat 5 storm hitting lower Florida would cause 60 to 180 billion dollars of damage. That stat, I think, was put out before the recent cost inflation. I think we could easily be looking at 200 to 300 billion dollars. I know it sounds crazy, billion dollars of damage if we get a major Cat 5 storm hitting a populated area in southern Florida. Like, it's just too expensive to do this stuff. And by the way, do you remember when I wanted to get a truck and fill the truck with just fans and just go, because the amount of money that you can get renting, those big fans, the amount of money that you can make renting $100 fan, you can make $100 a day renting $100 fan. when one of these storms hits. Okay, so like, that's just a little side hustle for you guys watching today. Like if this storm ever happens, here's the play. The play is to rent a truck and buy wherever you live in America. Go to your local Home Depot, buy as many of those huge. We're talking the huge fans, the biggest ones you can buy, the ones that you need to dry out the first story of a home, and take that truck to wherever the hurricane went. And I I will almost assure you that you could probably rent those fans out because the insurance companies will pay for it, right? And there's a going rate for those fans, and it's like the cost of the fan every 2 days is what you get for it. It is the best business ever, cash flow business. You just have to be mentally prepared to do that. So I'm
And
just
have a lot of
I'm
time on
planting
your
a seed.
hands. Yeah.
I'm planting a seed in everyone's head. I am at a stage of
That's
my
something
life.
that I won't be doing, just for the record. But
I know
I
you're.
can't wait to see you down in
What I
Florida.
love about this is that, like, during some of these hurricanes, like Hurricane Harvey and Katrina, you had people with boats, and they would drive down and help people, and try to get people out of emergency situations. Chris wants to buy fans and then charge insurance companies.
I'm not a boater, and it's the insurance companies. I'm not ripping people off. The insurance companies are going to pay what they're going to pay, okay? At least let me make some money. Now, I was at a point in my life 7 years ago that I wanted this. I am finally graduated to a point where I'm not going to do this anymore, and that's why I'm freely sharing that side hustle with the world. So if you're out there and you're looking for
The
a
world
side
is a
hustle,
luckier place today, thanks to Chris Camillo.
I'm telling you, that is a simple business. It's not expensive, by the way, because all you have to do is rent like one of those trucks. They're not that expensive to rent like one of those trucks that you drive. And the fans are not that expensive either. I also want to do this with dehumidifier systems. That's if you want to step it up and you have extra cash, you can get some of those dehumidifier systems, and those rent for crazy money. Because all right, think about it, guys. You have like Jordan. You have
No,
tens
this is
of
how
thousands.
those restoration companies make money. Is that they charge you per day for each one of the fans and each one of the dehumidifiers that they put in. They come out and like cut holes in the sheetrock, and then they just run these fans for weeks.
Guys, those companies are so simple. Do you know what happens? They do exactly all those guys from all the surrounding states literally just get their trucks and they just drive down there with this stuff.
Right.
That's all.
But really,
they
you don't even
do.
have to do that because these companies make so much money just from random, water events in houses. So like pipes leaking and, pipes bursting and all that stuff, that they can make tons of money by just running around with their trucks full of fans and dehumidifiers anywhere. So yeah, it's a target-rich environment if you get to a hurricane.
You know what, Jordan? It's a great AI-proof business. Now that I think about it, it really is.
Yeah.
It's that is one of the good, especially now that we have more storms, right? And more events, more weather events, tornadoes, all the stuff, right? Like,
And if you think about it, in the Metroplex, there's really only like 3 or 4 of the name brand companies that you would go to.
but they're all franchise. Jordan, they're just franchisees. They're
Right.
just regular people with
That's
a
right.
little
And
a
they
room.
sub so like, and then all of the restoration work they just sub out to subcontractors to fix your
It's
house.
so simple, guys.
Yeah.
It but by the way, like I always tell people, like people are like, "Hey, I don't have money to." All right, make money to invest, right? Like, but these are actually legit good ways, simple cash flow businesses that you can generate the
Yeah.
money to start trading hurricanes, right? Like why not dip in every area to make as much money as you can? So that's it. I mean, that's a lot of trades there. By the way, I want to get one thing back to the Europe situation, Dave. I was laughing with my daughter this week. I don't know how this came up. When we took our Italy trip, we were going to these museums that, these museums have priceless art. And I don't know how many tens or hundreds of thousands of square feet these museums are. They are huge. Every room is like a castle. And they would have one little dual splitter HVAC on the floor with a hose going outside, and
The
it was
same
like
thing at the
110.
Louvre. Like it's like 1,000 degrees inside of there, and it's humid. I don't understand how our priceless art isn't more important. Now they put the Mona Lisa in its own little glass with its own dehumidifier, but all the other stuff, no, it's just out there.
What the F is going on in Europe, guys? That's all you can afford is one little splitter unit on the floor. So I would go from room to room, and my wife is dragging us through these museums. And me and my son, we just get into the next room. And not every room had one of these little splitters, but like every other one would have one. And we would
You
just go
straight to
sit on the
split unit
floor.
on the floor and stand next to it, just trying to cool off a little bit.
That's it.
How are
my
the oil paintings not just melted by now?
my entire Italy trip. That was
Yeah.
me just looking for a splitter unit on the freaking floor. I don't
What's
understand.
funny is that I was the Amy in that situation when I went to Madrid. I was the one dragging to museums and trying to read every single placard and look at everything.
But was
and
it
everybody else
hot?
like,
Was it hot?
no, they had the HVAC solved in Madrid because it's hot there. You have to deal with it, you know?
Well, I'd be fine with all that kind of if it wasn't that hot. But like,
Yeah.
dude, the heat's not going away. I don't think in
Yeah.
Europe. Like
No, I meant
feel
it's hot in Madrid, so they already have HVACs, like in some of their museums that we went to.
Their museums are a little better prepared.
Yeah.
Italy
Here's the
was
thing,
really
guys.
behind the times.
I'm always going to bring it back to humanoids. I know, because like I think when humanoids ultimately bring us to the age of, what was I calling it? The age of what? Where basically nobody works anymore and everything is just like leisure, right? Like I think at that point these Europeans are finally going to get a taste of air conditioning, and I hope that the AI revolution and humanoids and all the efficiencies and productivity that come with it, enable societies to be in a better place. Age of abundance. Thank you, Stephen.
Age of abundance. That's what you
So
called it.
I think one of the big things to come out of the age of abundance is going to be HVAC for all. And that's why I'm buying Carrier, because Europeans are going to get a taste of HVAC. And once they get a taste of it, there's no going back. Isn't it wild that like it's 2024
Yeah.
and Europeans are like, man, those Americans, they all have air conditioning and like
And all that ice
there's
they're
only
putting in
one,
their
there's only
Coca-Colas.
one issue with your European HVAC hypothesis,
what?
and that is AMOC collapse. And so that
A
could
what?
affect the trade. That could affect the trade.
Wait, a what collapse?
AMOC.
I-
It's the scientific term for the Gulf Stream, basically.
Oh, okay. Yes, I wanted you to address this on this episode. Can you quickly just address
Before we jump to that, I do want to hear what AMAC is in the jet stream. But you just mentioned robotics, and people want to know, Chris, have you gotten into your long Tesla trade for the robotics theory yet?
No, I haven't, and I'm upset about it. Okay, like I did not see this coming.
Another like it's on a tear. All right, now back to Jordan with the
I know.
whatever the scientific term for the collapse of the jet stream is.
Right. So I just looked it up. I remember AMAC, but the second word's tough. So Atlantic Meridional overturning circulation. So it's the current that runs all along the Atlantic Ocean. The idea is that it carries warm water up north, and it's what causes Europe to stay warm. Because without it, Europe would be much colder. And so that's what happened during the last ice age. That there was a big, freshwater event that hit the Atlantic Ocean, northern Atlantic Ocean, kind of shut down this global current and plunged Europe into an ice age, right? And so that's kind of the theory, is that could happen. So if it warms enough, you get enough glacier melt in Greenland that dumps a bunch of fresh water. It messes with the circulation, and then all of a sudden this thing shuts down for a few 1,500 years or so.
Okay, but we'll see it coming, right? And we can get out of the carrier trade if that happens.
So the confidence interval for when this is going to happen, so it's a 95% confidence interval that it's going to happen between 2025 and like 2100 or so. And so
that's wow.
So you have some time to make a trade there.
With the average prediction being at like 2057 is the.
Would it make the West even warmer though, Jordan?
So no, not necessarily. It will have an impact on North America, but not nearly as much as Europe. So it'll cool off Europe supposedly. But what it'll really do is it'll bake the equator. It'll bake the southern hemisphere, and so that's where some of the scariest stuff happens. North America maybe slightly warmer. Europe much colder. But it just bakes the equator.
So Mexico's screwed.
Mexico would be in trouble, probably. Yeah.
Not
South
your
America.
South America
It's like
could be
115 degrees in central Mexico right now.
Wait,
Yeah.
how hot, Dave?
I saw 115, 118 in central Mexico. It's just brutal.
I wonder if that helps.
But again, these are all predictions, and who knows if it's actually going to shake out the way that the models.
And
predict.
Jordan, when was the last time this happened?
It's the last ice age.
Okay, so basically, was this caused by the dinosaurs burning too much fossil fuel, or just because the Earth does what it's going to do?
No, so I think so. I don't remember. I think I remember reading that there was some sort of impact from a asteroid or something, some small impact that caused a melting event in a big glacier that then disrupted that. At least that's the theory, right? It's all theories. We weren't there. But that basically, that was like a singular event that caused it to happen. So an impact melts a glacier. You get this huge influx of fresh water into the ocean. It changes that circulation pattern, and an ice age happens. This is different, right? So what we're seeing right now, and what people have been running simulations on, is what happens as these glaciers melt over time. Will you get that same impact? Will you get this like singular event of, okay, now now this AMOC shuts down, or does it just continue to weaken?
Happen over a slower period.
And so that's where they've been using models to try to figure out. And there's basically in the last few months, there's been a model that comes out that they do show that there's this cliff, basically, that at a certain weakening level that happens at so much of the glacier melt that it would have that impact of effectively shutting it down the circulation.
That's why I like to have Jordan. He's full of the science. He has so much more actual knowledge than Chris and I combined.
It's not part of my current trade thesis, but it's certainly.
Well, the good news is that so the 95% confidence starts next year, but is it going to happen by next year? I doubt it. Right? No. I think you've got a few years of the trade to play out.
For sure. I'm not concerned about it now. That's
and even if Europe cools off, we're still going to need refrigeration for all of our server farms. Because those generate excessive heat. Even if the sun stops making as much heat, the servers are going to.
Agreed.
Yeah.
By the way,
until a solar flare wipes us all out.
I'm really upset about it.
Yeah.
I'm really upset about Tesla, by the way. I'm super upset. Like I was actually thinking yesterday, I was like, wouldn't it be crazy if after I put out like the biggest Tesla prediction ever about a $10 trillion valuation just for Optimus, I got left out of the trade? Wouldn't that suck? That would totally suck. I'll get in the trade. This feels like a little bit of short covering today. Obviously the Tesla delivery numbers were way better than expected, which
I thought they were just slightly better than expected. I thought it was like 440 versus expected versus 441 or 442.
I know, but there were a lot of people that were expecting them to miss that. And like the whisper number was like way lower than an expectation from what I understand. And boy, someone got it wrong, or all this stuff is so. I should have known this. There was something in the back of my head that said when Elon gets his pay deal approved, somehow, some way, all these other things are going to resolve themselves. It's a little shady
Is
thinking
there
like
an
that.
implication there, Chris? Would you like to
No,
share?
I'm just saying, like, historically,
Yeah.
when he's
When he wants the stock to
right,
go up, it goes up. When he doesn't want the stock to go up, it doesn't.
it
Oh my
doesn't.
gosh.
It doesn't.
I don't. I'm
know.
not saying anything's happening there.
I know, man.
I'm
I
long
know.
Tesla. I expect to be long Tesla for the rest of my life, but we'll see.
Listen, man. I want to get very long Tesla, like very long Tesla. And for a little while, I was playing around with some options just as a hedge, but I was like, I felt pretty safe staying out of it I was thinking like until like midsummer-ish. And I wasn't expecting Optimus to really generate any enthusiasm. And that's
Yeah.
my primary. And I thought everything else was kind of lightly more negative than positive in terms of risk. And I was wrong about this stuff. So we'll see where it goes from here. I got to
Yeah.
really think hard about whether I want to initiate a position now or not. Anyway, this is a fun episode.
We'll just
Lots
have
of good
to
storm
see
trade.
Yeah, we'll do a
Trade.
future episode.
Yeah. And by the way, guys, we are working on our election political trade episodes.
Our non-political political show.
Yeah. Yeah. Those will be fun. This stuff is heating up and getting a little crazy. This politics stuff kind of makes me a little crazy right now. I almost don't want to think about it because it just kind of ruins my day and week when I'm forced to think about it, which is why I'm kicking the can down the road a little bit. I do think we have time. But I promise you'll want to watch those episodes when they come, guys. Thank you, though. All right.
And that's going to do it for this one. Thanks so much for watching. We will see you on the very next Dumb Money, which we don't know when it's going to be. So, figure out how you can do that by ringing a bell or something. All right. Or I've noticed that we have more people watching on X than we do on YouTube these days. By it's
really?
like more than, we have 700 on live on X right now and only 380 on YouTube.
X is a very Fin tweet, Fin X. Fin X is a big deal.
It's a great platform because if you follow us, if you subscribe to us there, they put the pink banner at the top that says we're live, and it's I think way better visibility than YouTube. Yeah. Like giving it maybe you'll see a thumbnail of us, right. Maybe not. Anyway, thanks, Elon. All right, we're Dumb Money. We'll see you next week or whenever. And that's not the right button.